Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Jump Off a Dock. I'm DJ, that's Alex, and we're happy to have you, as always. Alex, today
Yes.
we watched The Rescue.
I can affirm that. Confirm that. It's affirmative.
We watched The Rescue, which was about, I remember hearing this on the news. I'm sure most of our listeners and viewers did. That Thai soccer team that got caught down in the underwater caves like 4 years ago, and it took a Herculean effort to get them out. They were trapped down there for 18 days.
Herculean, you say?
Herculean.
Is it Leon or Leon? Either way, I do recall one of the 10 labors of Hercules was holding his breath underwater for an extended amount of time.
Was it? I actually don't know much about Hercules. Yeah. I'm going to confess to my ignorance here, but when I think of Hercules, I think of Kevin Sorbo.
And you know, he'd be happy to know that.
So here's my first question to you about The Rescue, because this was like harrowing, right? Like they went in depth. It was a deep dive, you might say, into...
You might say.
Into what it took to actually get these boys and their coach out of these caves. So they had to, the water was filling up. Here's my question to you, because I couldn't imagine actually being in the dark, underwater. They weren't underwater because they had found this little part of the cave that wasn't submerged, but surrounded by water, in the dark, deep into this tunnel of caves. My question to you is, if you were trapped down there for 18 days, mentally, how do you think you would have held up?
It depends if I could get a cellular signal or not.
Yeah, so you can at least scroll Facebook while you're waiting for help. Wow, everyone's talking about us.
It just makes the hours go by. They melt away.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know how I'd handle it. In fact, I was thinking were you surprised that when the divers found them that they weren't in full Lord of the Flies mode? Huh? And they chose the meatiest of them to sacrifice for their first meal?
I honestly, yeah. The fact that the boys were smiling, the relief they must have felt when those divers first came to get them, though. So maybe we missed the Lord of the Flies moment. But here's another thing that this documentary didn't touch on that I would love to see more of. That coach, the only adult that was trapped down there with them, he must have been a hell of a coach / leader in that situation to keep 12 boys from, just falling into despair, because
I hear that's what Ted Lasso is based on.
Just pure positivity.
Totally. He scrawled out believe with his own blood on the top of the I hope everybody's been watching that show. That's
I haven't seen season 2, so I don't know if that's an actual thing that he did in season 2.
It's the first season. No, well, he didn't use his own blood, but he always had that sign that says believe over the door.
He should have written it in his own blood. That would have added up the stakes a little bit,
Yeah, for sure. It's kind of a little bit off his character, but yeah, sure, why not?
Yeah, I think I would have gone nuts. Here's the thing, though. I think because they were all young, because, I remember even thinking this when I was a kid, like when I was like 12 or 13 and I was scared to go on roller coasters, and then I would see like some 7-year-old kid would be going on. I'd be like, oh, because I was starting to think about like dying and stuff already. But like when you're that young, you don't, I bet you those kids almost didn't think they could die. You know what I mean?
Right. Like they thought, no matter how bad it gets, we're not going to die. We're kids.
Yeah, exactly. We can't die. We're
that
kids.
That kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And the coach.
And then the coach probably would say, you're right. You're right. It's impossible. Put it out of your head.
Yeah, but imagine if he was a bad coach, because like I played a lot of organized sports growing up. Like the difference between
You've had a lot of bad coaches.
Yeah, there were coaches I would not have wanted to be trapped in an underwater cave with. They would have been the ones inciting the Lord of the Flies behavior. By like day 2, they would have been like, I'm sorry, I got to eat you guys. You're like, what? We got rations right here.
What are you talking about? Just shush, he'll be piggy, and that's the end of the story. I got the conch, by the way. This whole time, I get the conch.
Yeah, it was. I think I like to believe I would have handled it okay as the coach. As a kid, I'm not sure what mindset I would have been in, but as a coach, I would have been having some serious crises there, trying to like keep a brave face on for the kid, but being like in my head, like we're all gonna die. Even when they found them, I still would have been like, we're still not out of this cave yet. Like when the divers came,
which is what they thought, which is what the divers thought too.
Yeah, man.
Are you claustrophobic? And also, have you ever been like scuba diving?
I have not been scuba diving. I am claustrophobic. But when I was in Australia like years ago, I went on like a scuba diving trip, but I was one of the 2 people who only did snorkeling because they gave me like a checklist of if you have any of these 10 things, you shouldn't scuba dive. And I had like 8 of them, you know. But yeah, scuba diving, I would love to scuba dive. Like the idea of it, I love. So I like to believe I could maybe do that. Scuba diving into a cave? Fuck no. No. Never. Never.
Yeah, I mean, I did scuba diving when I was like 16 in the Dominican Republic. You know, the kind where you get your lesson in the resort pool.
Yeah.
Really on the up and up. And I remember loving it. It does feel like at one point the divers talked about like you're kind of like an astronaut. I mean, I can imagine when you really go into the caves, but even just the idea of the feeling of flying when you just can move in any direction up, down towards the coral reefs. It really was pretty amazing. It felt amazing. But then I kind of didn't really put in my mind the idea that aspect of like you're kind of trapped. Like if you go up too fast, you get the bend. So I think now I would be much more aware of the things that could go wrong and maybe feel like a little more anxious about it. Age.
Impending death. But that shot they showed with the guy squeezing through the cave, like when he was scuba diving, you remember that shot? And it actually showed him like squeeze.
Yes.
I'm like, no.
Yeah, that was the claustrophobic moment for sure. That was, I mean, and you squeeze in and you think you could kind of make it, but then you're kind of stuck. But then somehow it's those moments where you got through, but now you can't get back out again. I mean, forget about that. I mean, and also, you know, I wonder when they found the team of workers that were stuck.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I figure like, was that the only one? I mean, are there any other little pockets where you see some skeletons? I mean, it must have been like Indiana Jones going through there, just finding skeleton here and there and everywhere.
For sure. What a crazy surprise that is, just going to look for one group of people and finding another group of people. Like, hey, can you rescue us too? Like, well, you weren't really the ones we were looking for. There's not a lot of media coverage about you guys, actually. You're not young and cute enough, but I guess so.
Yeah, low priority. And they... yeah, and then they were panicking. That's how they found out that this is not going to work if these kids aren't put under. I mean, that's a wild thing right there. And there was that Navy SEAL who did run out of air.
The Navy SEAL that died.
Yeah, he was. I mean, I'm just wondering. Here's a question: Do you the one that sadly ran out of air on the way back from delivering the air tanks? That's why he. The fact that he was delivering air tanks, but then his air tank ran out of the way. Do you think that while he was losing air, that he felt bitterness and resentment for this most bitter of all ironies?
Yeah, I mean, yes. I wonder. I mean, I can't imagine what that feeling is like right before when you realize you have no air left, and I don't know where he was, but let's say 500 meters away from being able to come above water, knowing you're just not going to make it. Is that feeling, would it have actually been bitterness? Like, all jokes aside, would you be like, fuck, man, I should have saved one more for myself? Or would you be like, I did it for the greater good, and this is a good death, I'm dying?
Yeah, I don't know. I think I can't, me being, I mean, I'm happy to describe myself as a coward. I don't know if I would. I don't know. I think when you're dying, you're more focused on the dying part than the I'm a hero. I don't know if I would be thinking like, well, at least I saved, and also it's like, did I save will the kids get saved? Can you imagine you don't know whether or not they even were successful, and you're like, well, I hope it's not in vain. That was the whole thing. Don't let it. They always say the moment I knew it was going to. Don't let his death be in vain. They always make it. Don't make it in vain. It's the worst if it's in vain.
It's true.
It's the worst kind of death is a death that's in vain.
Yeah. No, it's true, though. It's like I died because I was trying to help you guys, and then if you die anyway, I mean, I know you're dead anyway, but that would bother me. If I was looking down from heaven being like, come on, guys.
I wasted a death on you guys.
Yeah. No, that's terrible. His widow talking, because he was retired. He was a retired Navy SEAL. He went back out of that feeling of duty. And then to be the only one that dies is almost like if like 10 people died, and I'm not belittling his death at all. He was a hero. He died helping the people trapped in the cave. But when it's only one person that dies, doesn't it almost make you feel like it was somehow even more preventable? Like if 10 people died, you're like, man, they were really trying to figure it out before they saved these guys. But when one person dies, you're like, feel like that didn't have to happen.
Well, I think that's in a way it's surprising because it's in a way you think, well, what did happen? Because I mean, they seem to have been trying to look at all contingencies. So how could he? Did they say that? Like how it was that they somehow timed it wrong? I didn't catch that part. Maybe we'll find that out in the Netflix series that will be coming out.
Are they making another one about it?
Well, no, because what happened was this documentary only dealt with the divers. If you notice, there was no interviews with the kids or the soccer.
Yeah.
I was thinking like the soccer coach is like, oh yeah, that's right. There was a soccer coach. You figure you'd see or hear a little bit from the soccer coach, but they didn't have the rights to that story.
Oh.
Netflix bought the rights to the kids' story, and there's a series that will be coming out. And I think there's also a film about this. Who's directing it? It's like Viggo Mortensen is starring, and I think Colin Firth. Not Firth. Colin. What's the other Colin? The Irish
Farrell?
Colin. Farrell. I think he's in it.
I saw him at a mech in Burbank once. Not to brag.
Well, listen, this is definitely related to this story because a mech is a place where you might get some supplies.
True.
Not diving
You're
supplies.
preparing for the role. But you know what's crazy is even this, you describing this movie coming out about it, the first two actors you mentioned are white dudes. It's like the fact that we're framing this, even...
The divers.
No, I know. I'm not saying...
with history.
But I'm just saying, like, even like the heroes of this movie were like, we had to get divers from all over the world. And it's like 3 old white dudes. I'm like, you tell me there were no Thai people who knew these caves? Like, maybe that's true, but if that is true, why not? Why did they not know their own caves?
I think it has more to do with maybe the type of lifestyle that you need in order to pursue this.
Yeah, you're right. I think you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I do want to see the other story then because I want to know that coach. Like I said, I believe he had to be a hero for 18 days to keep the morale of that group high when they're on the brink of death the whole time. They were running out of air, literally running out of air.
10 days. There were 10 days before the divers got there. I can't imagine. I mean, day 3,
Pitch
I'm
black.
already going, well, I guess we're done.
Pitch black. Because we saw them when it was lit up because the divers had lights on. But otherwise, that was just black. Oh, my God. The depths of despair I would have gone to within probably 45 minutes. Like the second we were trapped, I would have been like, this is it. Everyone should just drown themselves because it's going to get ugly. Worst coach in the world.
You just quietly, at night, just quietly drowning children one at a time. Just drown, just acts of mercy. And then the guys show up and, I misplayed this one.
No, I've been alone the whole time. I'm not a coach.
I'm gonna call poor judgment on this one.
I acted a little hastily. Here's my question for you. They had that the monk from Myanmar.
What do I know? Okay.
So the monk, Kruba Bunchim, and he said the kids were okay. Like before they had even gone down there to rescue them, he proclaimed they were okay, but 2 lives might be sacrificed. In all his wisdom, he saw this, which I think he was wrong, right? Only one person ended up dying?
I think there might have been somebody else as well, but I don't think it was in this story, but I think there might have been another person.
So he was either spot on or he was batting 500, which is still very good. But the day he arrived, the rain stopped. They really talked about the impact he had in a really kind of, religious way. But then so they ended up bringing like religious totems down to these boys when they found them, these bracelets, but they weren't able to bring them out yet, but they were able to make contact and let them know we'll figure it out and come back to get you. My question to you is, would you have derived any value from a religious totem? Like if you were stuck down there and a spiritual leader in the area came down, or he didn't come down himself, but gave you these bracelets or whatever was of value to you in your particular religion, would that have given you any... a pep in your step that you might be free soon?
Depends on how many grams of protein it contained. I personally don't adhere to these kinds of religions. I mean, I don't like this. This monk was a descendant of the king or whatever. Was it a prince or a king? Because a princess represented the river, right? She was right, and so I mean, all of that is part of a certain kind of a type of religious belief that I mean, maybe. I mean, that what they said. I'm like the divers. The divers were like, I'm not going to bother with this, and they were like, well, no, actually, the kids, they will. This is their upbringing. This is their religion. They will derive comfort from this. So it doesn't matter whether I would or not. I mean, how about you? Do you think you would? Do it matter to
I
you?
do love the idea of you saying protein, that I'm like trying to give the bracelet and be like, you got any Cliff Bars or anything instead?
love the bracelet. Really, honestly, I love a good knick-knack, a tchotchke, whatever it is that around here is great. But I don't know if it's top priority right now. I don't know if I'm decorating this cave.
I don't know if it would have given me value. In my mind right now, I don't think so. But having been trapped down there for 10 days or whatever, maybe I would have derived something from, and like you said, that's where they grew up. So the fact that the divers, this British diver, didn't even want to bring it down was another thing. Like, I was watching it with Madge, and she was like, fuck this guy for like even saying no to bringing that down. Like, who are you to like not?
Yeah, that was that. I know. I agree with that. I mean, it's like, just take it. Does it put that much weight on your pack? Just throw it in your pack and shut the fuck up.
Yeah, like you're gonna hear in the news after, like, one of the British divers died. He was weighed down by 12 bracelets. Sources say.
So then I'd say he had good instincts on that. Then I would agree with.
Also, who am I to judge him? Because other than that bracelet thing, like, those divers were heroes as well. I mean, they wanted to leave at one point. They said that was one of their big regrets, that they almost left before they saved them.
But that's that's part of the experience. Like, it's like a story. The story has those ups and downs where all is lost. They had the all is lost moment. I mean, if it didn't have that, then we wouldn't have a hero's journey.
That's true. Shout out to Joseph Campbell.
Yeah. Big ups. Big ups to 1,000 faces.
Joey C.
What a couple of morons. Here's what I want to ask you. Were you, like I, waiting for Elon Musk to show up?
Yes, I was. I'm actually happy they didn't talk about that at all. Are you talking about the pedophile storyline?
Well, first of all, the fact that he was going to come up with some kind of submarine, which when you see the story now and you see the size of those holes, you realize how ridiculous. And then it was a matter of Vernon, the one of the divers who brought in, who decided, who said, hey, let's bring in the best.
He was basically Danny Ocean in this situation. He brought in Ocean's 11.
Oh, right, Danny. I see. Yeah. That's good. He said Elon Musk was just doing a PR stunt. It was useless, and it was just a PR stunt. And then that's when Musk came back after him and called him a pedo.
He tweeted out that he was a pedo, and I don't know if you heard, but he sued Elon Musk for like upwards of $100 million for defamation and slander, and he just lost in court. He didn't win his defamation suit against Elon Musk.
He didn't even get a little bonus, little $1,000 bonus?
I don't think he got any. It's a large sum of money to ask, but here's the thing I learned about that, actually, that really interested me. So one of the smartest moves, I got this from an article, but one of the smartest moves by Elon Musk's defense was in introducing the concept of JDART, an acronym to describe their client's conduct on Twitter in relation to the infamous pedo guy tweet. A JDART, lawyer Alex Spiro explained, meant a joke that was badly received, therefore deleted, with an apology and then responsive tweets to move on from the matter. JDART. So basically, JDART means that Mr. Musk may have acted foolishly with the J, the joke, but he soon darted, which is how you know he wasn't being serious about the allegation. So that's a term I'd never heard before, but that was like largely what their defense rested on. JDART, meaning joke, and then all these things after, like deleting and then
so dart, it's D-A-R-T?
J-D-A-R-T. Joke, then deleted, apology, responsive tweets to move on from the matter.
That's funny, J-Dart. For a moment there, I thought you were saying Jadar. I was like, "Are you talking about like Judar? That's when I can that's when I can spot another Jew. I got Judar. Yeah. That's what you're saying, Jadar.
Jadar,
like J date.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, yeah, never heard of that.
And I don't think that's valid. So that means I could just like call you all sorts of names and then just delete it and then say like, I was joking, Jadar. Like life doesn't work that way.
Yeah, it seems like it's a very easy way out of slander, because you can just be slanderous and then wait, and if you have the desired effect, then no problem. But if it isn't, then you can just quickly backpedal, and suddenly it's like take backsies.
So many people do that under the guise of comedy. People who don't understand comedy doesn't have to be hurtful. People be like, you fucking loser, and you're like, ow, and they're like, come on, man, it's a joke. You're like, what? What was the joke?
I was just joking. I think I've been guilty of that a couple of times, where like I say something that is maybe a little sharp to try to make a point, and then the person doesn't appreciate it. Like, it was a joke. I'm joking. It was a joke, right? I mean, it was
You're
just
not
a joke,
fucking loser.
Which it was kind of framed like a joke. It was framed a bit like a joke, but I also was making a point.
J Dart.
Anyway, J Dart.
Here's a random kind of question. When the divers first showed up, two of the white dudes, they weren't all from Britain, but I can't remember where they were, but two of the divers that Vern brought in, what was hilarious was they flew them in first class, but then they had to share a bed once they got there. And then the guy said, we shared a double bed, but he said we did top and tail. So my question, meaning I've never heard it described that way, but one person's at the head and so your feet and head are side by side. Why is that better? I feel like if I'm sharing a bed with the dude, in a non-romantic way, I'd rather be beside his face, not his feet. Agree or disagree?
I don't think that there's any benefit. I think even like they did that on Seinfeld, right? And then Seinfeld had a joke about what difference does it make, because the sexual organs still line up.
I don't remember that, but Jay Seinfeld.
So, when he said that, I thought, oh, I'm sorry. Are we children? Like, are we like preteen? Yeah. Like, no, ew, gross.
I'm not
like,
gay. I don't want Elon to tweet about me.
But in a way, maybe they are, because this brings me to another point about these people is they're kind of, they were kind of loners. They weren't picked last. They talked about that. When they described their backstory and why it is they found this particular sport to be just right up their alley, is the fact that they cut themselves off from any social hierarchy, and they just enjoy time between them and like a almost caveman-like existence. And I kind of get that. I mean, it's funny that they were never good at team sports. I mean, they did pretty much what they just described was like my profile. I was like,
I did think about you while they were saying that. Not being a loser, but how you've described that you didn't play team sports and you kind of.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that I came to mind, you asshole. But I say that the difference is, though, when one of them mentioned being bullied, I never actually got bullied. I always felt like, even though first of all I never got bullied, I don't know what it was about me that didn't seem bullyable. You know what I mean? Hey, what do you don't think I'm worth?
You're a tall guy. Did you get tall at a young age?
Not too. I mean, I could have been bullied before I got tall. I think I got tall, like kind of, 7th, 6th grade or something like that. But maybe a little after that. But I also had two older brothers, so I always felt like no matter what happened, I always knew in the back of my mind, oh yeah, you lay a finger on me. I mean, I got two guys that are like 5 to 9 years older than me. We'll see how they deal with you. You know what I mean? I always felt like I had I had muscle.
Yeah.
Never had to use it. But how about you? Did you ever get any kind of bullying?
No, and I there was plenty of reason to bully me too. I had hearing aids and everything, but I had two older sisters. One was way older, so it didn't really. But the one that was 4 years older than me, she was very attractive. So I feel like a lot of dudes who wanted to get with her were looking out for me. You know what I mean? But they didn't necessarily have the purest motives, but it still worked in my favor.
Totally get it. Maybe, if I'm good with this kid, I got an in. That's good. Yeah. Whatever works.
Here's a question for you, because this was like the craziest part of the movie, when they actually did have to sedate the kids before taking them out for like 2 or 3 hours. They had to dive underwater with these completely unconscious kids, which is insane. So the kids were like, obviously they did it because they wanted to get out of this cave, but like, have you cliff dived before?
No, that's again heights and not being able to swim at a young age were probably two reasons why.
I couldn't swim at a young age either, and I learned like in my teenage years, and then I tried to like get more brave, and I started doing cliff jumps with like my girlfriend at the time and a few friends, but I just remember like sometimes after the first one, the second or third one was even harder because you like knew how scary the first one was, but you had to like really like be like, okay, here we go. I'm going to do it. I'm going to jump. But sometimes it would take you like minutes. So my question to you is, how long would it have taken you when they said, okay, we're just going to sedate you now and then put you underwater for 3 hours? Would you have been like, okay, let's do this right away? Or if not, how long would it have taken you to really work up the nerve to be like, okay, jab me with that drug. Let's do this.
I think I have a certain kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Trust in authority like that. Like if I feel like, oh, he's a doctor, he knows what he's doing. Okay, and also
he wasn't a doctor.
I think it's
it was just some random English dude who was like, you know.
Well, that's a different story.
Yeah.
Then I'd say you first. I'll let the other guy go first. That's number one. Mm-hmm. And then there's also the fact that they gave them Xanax at first as an anti-anxiety, which was smart. Mm-hmm. I think if they give me a pill to take first, I mean and I went, okay. And then I started to feel like, and they said, we're gonna do this. Okay. I mean, at that point, the drug's taking over, so it's not even really it's an issue for me. And I'd be happy to have drugs take over.
Oh yeah. When they made the boys, when they found them in the cave and then made them start like being like, hello, America. Hello, Britain. You remember that? Hello, Thailand. All the boys in the cave.
Yeah, that's right.
If I was the boys, I mean, I'm happy you guys found me, but I'd be like, can we do all this like when we get outside of this peril that we're still in? Because like, it just seemed so weird. And they started doing celebratory shot before they had all the boys out of the cave.
Yeah, that was weird. Where they had like, what is it, like Jack Daniels or something like that?
A bit premature.
Shots. Yeah, again, it's morale, I guess. That's how they do it. Because one of the guys, they said that he had worked with scouts or something like that, and so he knew how to handle. So he was good at like keeping the morale up with the kids, which I thought like, oh, that's cool. Okay, that is good that he knew that. I mean, I wouldn't think to do that. But then, as you know, you remind me about the soccer coach. I'm like, that's thinking like, isn't that the soccer coach's job too to keep the morale up? So I guess. Whatever, every little bit helps. But by the way, I just want to tell you this. You can cut this out. But do you know what it was that Musk said to Vernon, or tweeted about Vernon? You know specifically what it was? I looked it up. He said he's an old single white guy from England who's been traveling or living in Thailand for 30 to 40 years. Musk added that Unsworth moved in Thailand for a child bride who was about 12 years old at the time. Which was all untrue. Like he'd been there with he'd already was married when he moved there, and it's just all like way off. Mm-hmm. Like it's just complete. The fact that he got away with it. I mean, he really should have been sued for some of that because that went around the world.
J-Dart, what? We can't joke anymore?
Can't joke. Well, as long as you got the dart, I guess you can J all you want.
Yeah, that's crazy. That is defamatory.
Yeah, I was just gonna. There was one thing that I was just gonna mention. Here's a little factoid.
Yeah.
That is about Rick Stanton. He's kind of the main dude, right?
Yeah.
He attributes his interest in cave diving to a television program he watched as a teenager called The Underground Eiger, saying, after watching it, I just knew that cave diving was for me. So my point is that the people who made that program are indirectly partly responsible for saving those children, which means that making TV can save lives.
It's true. Yeah. I mean, that's true. It's
funny.
It's like if he would have watched, I don't know. What did I watch? I watched The Three Stooges. What's that doing for the world?
Not much. I mean, maybe you might be saving some people from getting bored and unhappy, but I don't know about lives.
Yeah, if I would have shown up in that cave, I would have boinked one of the kids over the head, you know?
That can be good for morale.
I would not even have made it 10 feet. Oh, and another thing, you know that guy who got lost on his way out? And then that would have been a terrible way to die when the mission's almost over. And
that's embarrassing.
Embarrassing, yeah. Yeah, I mean, the whole thing was harrowing, and I will say I want to watch I do want to hear from the kids and the soccer coach now, because that was missing from this whole thing, and I just would love if, like, when we watch that documentary, the soccer coach is like, those divers were assholes.
Yeah, really.
Who knows?
Hear it, yeah. But then again, we're not hearing it's not a documentary; it's a series, so you can't trust everything. They'll only, sometimes it's based on a true story, so they have to sometimes change a few things to make the story arc a little bit more satisfying.
That's true.
And it is apparently one of the people involved is I think the director of Crazy Rich Asians. So I'm just whatever that tells you. That's
it's gonna be an opulent cave. I'll tell you that much. Just like lights hung everywhere. Madge and I watched Crazy Rich Asians like right after we got married. So have you seen Crazy Rich Asians?
I watched it after I came back from being in Singapore, so I was able to go like, oh, look at that. And I stayed at the Marina Bay, whatever it's called.
We also watched
Hotel.
it when we were coming back from Asia too, and had been in Singapore, and that's crazy. But the reason we watched it, and like the wedding was so opulent, and we had like a wedding of like 50 people, and it was a nice wedding. We liked it a lot, but like you can't help but feel inferior after you watch a wedding in that movie. You're like, damn, I guess ours was all right, but we weren't walking on water and shit,
Yeah. You could have done like the cheap kind of version of that, where you could have like with some low budget special effects, try to get the same effect. Maybe just some saran wrap.
Yeah. Well, our venue did have a plumbing issue, so there was leaks all over. So it was
What an auspicious occasion.
All right. Well, that was The Rescue. And
it was
great. I mean, we're not here to review it, but I was into it the whole time.
Yeah, I was into it. I have to say it was a story well told.
Yeah,
I enjoyed it.
And next week we're going to be watching Children Full of Life, which is just like
Children Full of Life,
just like a 40 or 45 minute documentary that we found on YouTube. It's actually a recommendation from Madge, my wife, who watched it years ago and liked it. So we'll see what we think of it.
Let's see what we think of it.
Thank you very much for watching, everybody. I'm DJ.
I am Alex.
Catch you next week.
We'll catch you the other day.